Hello, good morning. We're in December 2023. Isn't that amazing? December 4th. We're at the neutral zone. Good morning. Hi, I'm Jason Schwartz. I am one of your hosts, and the other host is our co-host Scott Bushnell, Scott R Bushnell.
It all works, Jason.
I think the R stands for wow, because he is very special.
Special.
Thanks for being here, Scott.
Hey, no problem, Jason. Thank you.
You know, Scott has taken on the role, I call it co-host. Let me share with you. I find him very interesting and relaxing as a person to have here. I have been out of sorts, I think even before the wildfires, but I just have not settled down into a routine of interviewing people and talking about long-term things at the moment yet, or doing stuff because I am so out of sorts, if you will.
Are you out of sorts, or are you just hyper-focused?
No, I think it's out of sorts. You know,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, a little of each. I can't hear out of my left ear, and it's now been a week. And, you know, after seeing doctor upon doctor, I'm going to see another one after the show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I hope to be able to get back to somewhat of a more normaler, how's that?
More normal?
Yeah.
No, there's no normal, Jason.
And maybe that's one thing. But then let go of the world. I have to let go of world events, let go of local events, kind of hide all the... hide. There's an amazing thing going on called lack of services. And I think sometimes... it isn't for lack of anybody wanting to deliver them. It's for lack of knowing how to deliver them. You know, I'm still just... I get calls from people that say, I want to be on your show. 808-873-3435. Let me repeat it again. 808-873-3435. That's a call-in line. If you want to be on our show... you can be a guest if you want. That's the easiest and quickest and most direct way. 808-873-3435. That's if I hear the phone ringing and I pick you up. But Scott will see the light today.
I hope to see the light today. That would be good, Jason. I've been meaning to see the light.
You know, every time I come and speak to you, I find that I am intrigued by your vast expanse of really in-depth knowledge, you know. And when I was talking about the fires and you were talking about fires on a more national level, I thought we should probably talk about that here because that's a really important subject about firefighters and all that stuff.
Yeah, it is.
And so I hope you don't mind. I want to talk about that, and then maybe we'll relate it to what's happening here.
And what's the number here again, Jason?
Oh, yeah, 808-873-3435. That's our call-in line. The reason I say that, at some point, we're going to get focused on call out, which is, okay, you got a problem, let's call and see if we can get through to someone who can help or someone who can whatever. That will be when this show, the ratings should shoot up.
That would be great.
But,
I used to do talk radio, and we'd get people calling in, and it would be just screaming and yelling at me, and it was so much fun. Love that.
I'm really looking at the call out as being, you know, when someone gets a call while they're sitting at their desk and they're live on the air, that's somewhat invasive, I guess, you know. But, you know, if they're a public official and we're public access and we are the voice of Maui, they become part of that voice. And I think that would, you know, when they talk about accountability,
right?
I think, you know, in these last couple of weeks, I mean, I've had people call me that are living at a hotel.
Absolutely.
They were in the shelter. They were paying for the shelter on the west side, and then they were in the Hyatt Hotel. And then they wanted to have someone else who doesn't live in the area but is homeless come and talk about what's happening with the west side and this whole... I don't want to do that.
No.
I'd rather be
the most dangerous thing ever said is, don't worry, the federal government's here. You can relax. No. And it's never been good words.
Well, the other one that really gets me is, don't worry, we talk to the other people, and so everybody knows and we're on the same page. That's the other thing that really gets to me.
Everything is personal.
It's all separate. This computer system doesn't necessarily hook up with this computer system. So if you're helpless and homeless and don't qualify here, don't necessarily think that the people that could help you, that might be at the state or county level, by the way, that's conjecture that they can help you, because they're also no room at the inn. And I don't blame the people that are providing services. I really think that we just don't have enough money. We don't have enough creative ways of solving these problems. And like most piles of dung that we go diving in to find the pony, this is a bigger pile. And we're going to have to dig a little deeper to find that pony.
It's not always there. I think there's plenty of money, and I think this is the huge difference between the left and the right.
Where do you think the money is?
I think, and this is what's bothered me for back when I was in running for office and chairing a party back in my youth. That when we explored the Department of Agriculture's SNAP program, and we found out back in the 90s that it cost $27 to get a person that needs food $1 of food stamps. So I broke it down into thinking, okay, Democrats and Republicans, left, right, nobody disagrees about getting help or food stamps to people that need them. The difference is the people on the right say, how can we do it better so we can give them more and cost less to administrate that? And the left seems to be just throw the money and don't worry about the delivery system.
Well, I think that most of them may worry. This is my thinking. They worry, but they figure delivering the service is worth the pain afterward.
I don't see that as
you don't
somebody.
You think that they?
I think worry is a personal issue. I don't find that as a community issue. I see that as something that's internal to the person that may be receiving the services. If we could cut in half the cost of delivering the services and increase the amount of money or ability to buy food for that person, right now in the United States, the greatest number of overweight people are the poor.
Because they're eating starches and
they're
things
eating
they shouldn't
crap.
eat.
They're eating crap food.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the 7 words we're not supposed to
Yeah,
say.
no, I was just sitting there eating all these horrible foods. So here we are, and not all the working poor are on food stamps, but they are not eating the best way. And eating healthy is very expensive. I know that. So here we are. Now I think we're spending $38 to get $1 of food stamps to each person that needs them.
Does that mean the hierarchy of jobs that are related? Where does that 38?
One, the Congress approves it, and then there's an entire federal agency, the Department of Agriculture, where this began back in its infancy. Mm-hmm. And now they have 3 layers that are involved with that, which includes the Department of Agriculture, involves the Department of Social Services, Department of Social Security, the Department of Social Welfare. There's all these agencies. They're taking their cut.
Oh, you mean, I get you. So just they're taking the cut of the potential resources
to deliver them to the people.
With many times salary
and
support services
right.
for the agencies they create.
They're administering. And this is what I found out, too, back in my legislative era, is that with federal dollars that come to schools, and we're jumping from food stamps to schools, but it's all the same issue. That if a school wants $500,000 or wants $2 million for a program that the federal government is funding, and I managed a National Youth Sports program, a summer program for socioeconomic challenged youth. To get those dollars, we had to have at least 3 administrative people doing the paperwork on the grants so that we could have the dollars, and those were the highest paid people that we had in our National Youth Sports Program.
So a significant portion of the dollars
To get
secured,
to take care of young kids who can't afford the clubs or can't afford to go to this swim lessons or go to soccer lessons or go to these summer programs. The federal government was mandating that we had to do X, X, and X instead of. So are the dollars worth it? You know, I mean, the program was valuable. It was set up by President Kennedy, National Youth Program on Sports. It was a great one. It's get healthy, get healthy, get healthy. And it got so watered down, and so many universities that were running the program, so many YMCAs, so many Boys and Girls Clubs, just said they washed their hands of it because they realized that they couldn't afford to destroy the morale of their working people who are actually working with the kids or working in the community, because they had high-paid administrators that were just destroying the morale. Because you come in, lifeguards at the YMCA, soccer coaches, referees, all that, they're the best people on the planet. I believe that. But when they come into work and they're working with these high-risk kids and there's all this emotion and it's great and fulfilling work, and then they're seeing somebody sitting in an office that does paperwork that's making 5 times what they're making and never interacts with the people that are receiving the services, then it's really, really hard. And I've been an administrator in this, and a director, that it's really hard to motivate those people under you when they keep seeing this entity just sucking it dry.
How do you eliminate that?
I think it just all needs to come back to and this wraps right around to what you were just saying. Everything needs to be local. If we're going to fix something, we don't want to ask one of the other islands to fix our problems. We might ask if they have ideas on how to fix it, but we don't want to ask them for a blank check and go, oh, and then they go, where did that money go? I mean, how many times do you see it in a family where kids will come ask their parents, says, well, I need to buy this special computer and it's going to help me with my schoolwork, and then the parents never check up to see where that money went. Doesn't happen.
Interesting.
The
thing that I think we all look at is, now that we have the same need now,
right?
How do we deliver the food stamps for, instead of 38 to 1? Now that we know we have the need, is there a way to eliminate some of that some way? It's going to cut jobs, and so someone will say, hey, you're losing jobs. But it took an administrator that makes 5
times what the actual person working with the...
Because they had a certain skill, and that skill is securing
the money.
Right.
So therein lies the bureaucracy. Therein lies the fall of Rome. Therein lies the confusion of ancient Greece, is that we have such well-meaning people. I mean, I work for children and families, and parents and children together, just very much part-time. I work with some of the best well-meaning people on the planet. But there again, they have really good people that are making sure we have funds to deliver services. You know, I counsel at the jail on Fridays. I like that. I love that. But people aren't going into those fields anymore because they're getting frustrated with the overwhelming amount of reports you write. I mean, I write 3 reports for every interaction I have with somebody at the correctional facility. Back when I first started in juvenile corrections, when it was under Children's Services, our facility housed about 24 very violent, very dangerous teenagers. In that facility, and I was the first new hire in 17 years, it was pretty neat. And at that time, we had the director in the building. We had an assistant director, and then we had program leads for work study. We had program leads for emotional. We had everything from behavioral training. Everything was done in-house. And within the 10 years I worked in that one particular facility, we went from caring for the same 24 base bed, 24 beds. We had 3 administrators. And let's say these juveniles did everything on their list. They made their bed, they helped in the kitchen, they did everything that was asked of them, and we had a level system so they would achieve all this. By the weekend, if they maintained that like for 3 weeks and they were on point, okay, then they would turn the report in. The guy in the office, who is the director, signs off. Okay, those kids are going. Okay, they're going to do a trip to the beach that weekend. We're going to go to the beach for 3 or 4 hours, and that was approved in house. By the time I left, that procedure would have to go to one administrator above me, the main administrator at the building. It went to a whole new department layer that they created for this state, which interacts with the Department of Corrections, because we were below the Department of Corrections because we were juvenile. And that in itself would take 90 days for approval.
So there's no way to...
There's no incentive.
No
reward balance. Yeah. And it's systemic throughout our entire social service system. We are bureaucratizing everything. We have such good... You don't go into social services to be a bureaucrat. You go into social services because you like working with people. And they've just cluttered that up.
But how do we clean it up? I mean, I hear you.
Yeah,
I'm hearing it loudly.
Before FEMA got here, before all that, those services were being handled on island pretty cleanly. I can honestly say fairly cleanly. They needed some more support for the in-house people that were working in the 4 agencies on island that were run by the state and funded by the federal. But they were running pretty cleanly, and now they got overwhelmed. And as you just said at the opening, you brought somebody in that doesn't know the people, and now they're telling you what they're going to do for you and all this when they don't even know what you really need.
And they don't know that what they're doing isn't connected.
Oh, yeah.
They're signing you and giving you answers that in no way... Someone staying in the Hyatt, how are they going to be going and getting a job or reestablishing their life? It's got to be really tough.
Well, and that would be so gross. I can't even imagine it. But the Hyatt's beautiful. I worked there back in the 80s.
But I get it.
But I get it. It's a small... They're not giant rooms.
They're not living there in the idea of enjoying a luxury resort.
They're not living there with a $700 a day food allotment that it would cost to eat there. You know.
Well, yeah, so they're sort of like an orphan stepchild in the hotel. I'm just saying they don't have all the possibilities there. The hotel is suffering because they don't get the kind of revenue they need to support
for their other services provide, because they're all multifaceted.
Cut down their
hotels.
Staff to a strict minimum. And yet I guess I just have a confusion. When there's an emergency, why is it not possible to get tents? I see them doing it, but I just don't see it on
do we? I don't have this answer, Jason. Do you know people that are ready to jump and live in a tent with their family, who had a $4 million home in Lahaina that cost $20,000?
What are they going to do otherwise? Stay in a room?
I'm hearing them leaving the island a lot.
Okay.
They're getting a partial check from their insurance company because they know it's going to take 10 years to build, and they're either leaving the island or they're staying with family. And there's a new program on the island now that's for I think it's REP, RIP. RIP.
I know what that is. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. No, it's I think it's rest in peace. So people that are housing family members in their other family homes on the island are actually starting to get assistance now, which I thought that was good.
Did you see this little article the last couple of days that people that didn't qualify for the FEMA program are going to be housed for a year?
I saw that. And people that...
But how does that work?
there we go again. We're back to the whole COVID event. They tried to, we had 80%. We had the high. I mean, all the national news covered Maui is losing more jobs than any place on the planet, any place in the United States during that. So here we are. I know my little snorkeling swim lessons for adaptive adults has been devastated by the fire, was devastated by COVID, because it's real one-on-one, and I teach one lesson a day if I'm going well. So I was affected, but yet I'm retired, so I wouldn't reach out for that assistance. I mean, I don't know. I also see my neighbors where I live, and I live in low income, and I see my neighbors who are starting to come back a little bit, but they're still struggling because, my one friend works at banquets at the Grand Wailea, and the Grand, almost third of their conventions canceled after the fire, all the way through Christmas and New Year's and January. These big, the urologist convention, the eye doctor convention, the convention of used car salesmen, and those people brought in lots of money for the Grand. And it's not just the Grand, it's the people that prepare the food for those workers. Yeah. My brother and my nephew are coming to visit here in a few weeks, and there's almost no luau's on island anymore. We lost Lahaina, and the luau people that were putting them on at the hotels, because of their limited amount of people that are coming, that are, as we talked earlier, we have a lot of people housed at these nice hotels. They don't have the money to spend $300-400 to go to a luau. I don't, but I think they're really cool. So it's just a snowball. It's wonderful that people have a place to stay, and I will never question that.
Well, you asked me, are many people that are willing and ready to live in a tent?
No.
And my answer is, you gave it sort of, in the programs that you were in, you had a career development thing, help in this, help in that, all from a central place.
Right.
So the living in a tent may not be great, but if there was living in a tent, and I'm still back onto the basic of, there are so many people that don't even have a tent. I'm looking at those people, and maybe that's unfair on the whole picture, but it's really an important aspect in my mind, because I never thought that our country would, and our whatever, would get to this place. When I hear numbers like 42,000 homeless in Los Angeles, 42,000.
No, Jason. 750,000.
What?
Was the number I heard for California.
I heard this yesterday. Well,
yeah.
That may be California. I'm talking Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah.
Numbers are staggering.
Staggering.
So there's got to be something. What is our society doing?
I think what we have
keep
done,
separating,
and it comes down to simple, basic economics, and it makes all the sense in the world when you back up a little bit.
Okay.
We have had inflation consistently since the 60s. Back in the 60s and 70s, if you were working at the United States Post Office and you were delivering mail, on your salary, you could afford a 2 to 3 bedroom home with a garage and be the sole person making a living for your family.
And you'd have a couple of kids minimum.
You'd have a couple of kids. Everything was going great. We went through this period in the 70s where we had a giant inflation gap. Housing prices went up. But our housing, with the inflation of products, which is wonderful if you own a home. Inflation's a great thing when you own a home, because your payment very seldom changes.
Right.
But the value of the dollar really shrinks.
Right. Great income earner unless it's the wrong time.
But now we have this 8% of the population who no longer own homes, which are like my age, your age, we don't own a home. And instead of living in an area where our fixed bills are fixed, my rent has doubled since COVID. The cost of gasoline has doubled in just the last 3 years. Those are real big. That's not 20% more. out of my leftover at the end of the month, that's a 300% increase in inflation for fixed income people. I don't think people understand that. A lot, if you're working and you're working 40 hours a week, have you had a 25% increase in your pay? I think you'd be blessed if you are. I have children that have their jobs have been doing amazingly, and they're doing great. And I have other of my kids that are struggling, and they're working not on island, but they're working in jobs that would be similar to the island, which we're stuck. If you got a job today working in the post office here on island, you would need 3 of those jobs to afford to buy a home here. Somehow, I don't know if it was the dissolving of the strength of the unions, the labor unions. I don't know where the disconnect came.
I'm going to boil it down to where you said the 70s. Richard Nixon and the crew that said, we don't need a gold standard. Let's separate our dollars from real value. Let's create this mystery of leveraging things. And I know that sounds rather simple, but isn't that when it's changed?
On that note, as the world got unstable, as Ukraine, all of that, what did a strong world leader do? Russia went back on the gold standard. They went right back to the gold standard because they figured that was the only way to insulate their economy for what's going on and all the changes. I was like going, oh my God, I'd never heard of a country going back to the gold standard. The first time in history, and Putin put Russia back on a gold standard. It was a hit for a while, but now the Russian economy seems to be pretty rock solid.
Well, except how they're spending.
For that type of country, I wouldn't want to live there, but it's like, okay. But yeah, I think you've got a good point there. We don't have any. When they created the Federal Reserve and they gave them this great power and this giant printing machine.
Well, it allows things to expand without having
checks and balances. Yes, exactly.
And here we are now. We're so far down the road from that.
Yeah.
That's 50 years. Can you imagine? That's 50
years
ago.
I know. It's crazy.
I know. We were small children at that time.
Oh, exactly.
Of course. But I can't imagine how to go from where we are the only unless is the one that's not likely. And that is when you have a need and I have excess, I help fill your need.
Right.
But there's not that happening. The greed, to me, the fear and greed factor is like the people that are hoarding, pulling money out of the flow, and then we need more in the flow, so they create more money instead of trying to balance this. If you were the money source and there was no other money, then you would become the bank, which is what we hope would happen.
Right.
That those that have will share in what they have to help solutions happen. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening.
Well, I think it is. I think most people that own their homes that didn't finance on an arm are doing quite well, and that's about 80% of our population. We have a disconnect from the working class, and it's becoming ever more present when you hear about our millennials, kids born after the year 2000, which is just bam, that they're 24 years old, are realizing that they will not live the life that their parents had or their grandparents or great-grandparents. That seems completely out of reach because they're going, well, I finished college, now I'm making $28 an hour, which on Maui is $8 an hour under the poverty level. And they're going like, okay, to buy a home on Maui, I need $350,000 in income to buy a home that a mailman delivering mail on Maui in 1965 could buy for his family.
Well, we can walk off Maui and the problem still exists, but yeah, it's worse.
Yeah,
here.
it's everywhere, and it hasn't changed. Inflation and the Fed with their giant printing machine, because they're feeding this center of government. We've shrunk the middle class, and we've made a giant bureaucracy that's separating the people who are delivering the services from the people that need them.
So let's for a moment listen to this one.
Let's for a moment
fantasize that those with conservative values, are going to be given charge of this problem, and now they're going to. I don't want to say solve it. I can't see how they can solve it.
Well, Jason, I consider myself a conservative. Why? Because when I go to Safeway, I use coupons. Okay. That's the difference between a conservative and a liberal. If you're a liberal spender, what's a coupon? I don't need a coupon. I just buy or get what I need. No, there must be a better way. If I can get 3 for $1 today, which nothing's 3 for $1, and I put some away so that I have it when I want it, that's a good thing. So I'm very liberal. But I'm very conservative with what little money I have and how I spend it to make sure that I have food in the house. And
so how are we going to solve it now? I mean, remember, we said solve it on a local level.
A local level.
So that's why I say on a local level, those that have, I spot the big landowners. Yeah. I spot any landowners.
And if you're landowners in Maui, and that's one thing that I think, and I have a friend that works at the bank that there aren't a lot of big landowners here that aren't mortgaged up to their eyeballs.
Oh. There's our problem. Everyone is using this leverage system.
Everyone is using it.
So that there's never, I say never. So everyone is choking.
Yes.
Plenty of time. Wow. So what do we do?
What do we
keep swimming until we sink?
No, I think we just keep holding on. And I think we just need to elect people that use coupons at Safeway, and they want to know they're getting their bang for their buck. I don't know one conservative person that disagrees with food stamps or social services or Medicaid or Medicare or any of them. They just want to deliver it much more efficiently, without fraud, without waste, so that we're getting the best doctors to the people that need them.
How
and
do we
paying
do that,
them the
though?
best.
I mean, I don't know how to do
we have so many layers of government in between. I don't know how to do that.
Do
I know we
elected that's going to be elected that is going to start snipping and cutting people and jobs,
they always
and is going to get elected again?
They always promise that, but
Well, I haven't seen it happen. And if you have a job, you have all kinds of guarantees that after so many years you become a rock and you cannot be moved.
We and also which is really frightening to our democracy. And this is on a very large level. We have created bureaucracies and given them almost legislative power. During COVID, we saw that. We saw government agencies who should not have the power to tell people what to do and how to do it, whatever.
It's happening now with this wildfire.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the nature of people that are out here in the world who say, and again, I go back to I don't know how to change it unless to change the way we are. I'm not going to be involved unless there's a problem, and then I'm going to bitch. I can say the word bitch. It's like, but so they're not involved. We're not involved. An unknown caller. I love that. See, I didn't turn my phone off. I just really wonder, Scott, about what we're saying, because I don't know how do we change it when
how do we lean it down? We have to empower the economy to grow. We have to unleash.
Who did we elect in our group of now current legislators that can encourage not that can help cut the program and do all these things, but what about that growth piece?
Yeah, to grow the economy, and it's systemic of what we see everywhere on the island. Food trucks, they're great. Why do some of our best restaurants on the island have food trucks? Because there are a fraction of the overhead costs, taxes, everything across the middle board, which is weighing the country down, that when you have a fixed structure, a food truck, and they're coming after the food trucks right now. So our delivery system is overwhelmed. I owned a restaurant for a number of years. When I bought the restaurant, I was an idiot. I mean, if you talk about buying a restaurant, I'll tell you, let's go to Home Depot, buy a hammer, and we'll hit yourself in the head with it, because it makes about as much sense as owning a restaurant.
Oh, boy.
I had a lot of fun with it. It was great. I was growing it. I did not know the fire department had to inspect my restaurant. I knew the food and safety did. I didn't know that the inside of a refrigerator, if you had a little piece of tape in the back where it was cracked, that had to be replaced. There was the gas inspectors for the fryers, the ventilation systems.
Food trucks don't have that kind of inspection level?
They have. They don't have.
Fractional,
They don't.
yeah.
They don't have a dining area. They don't have a bathroom. They don't have a plethora of things that they have to deal with.
Waiters.
Exactly.
Staff,
It's and here we go. Cook, delivery, right out the window. That's what's happening that works. We're not doing that with many other agencies throughout the government.
How do we stop the restaurants from closing, or how do we stop? I mean, you go down in Carl Louis. I remember when we were excited. Hey, there's a food court in our town. Isn't that great? And then that food court had to move, and it moved down the street, and then it got split into two.
Yeah.
And then now there's another one and another one. Now there are 5 or 6 food courts.
Yeah, and they're very limited. They're very limited.
No, but I mean, what about the restaurants that said, hey, I'm at the XYZ mall. I'm paying rent, and now I've got, let's move our whole deal to a food truck.
Let's think about Lahaina for a second.
Yeah.
Fleetwoods. What would that building sell for and be taxed at new today? That's a $25 million location. How much money can you make selling food at one location to cover that outlay? Here's what's frightening to me is, because of that giant outlay, small guys like Mick Fleetwood, who's not a small guy, great guy, I've met him, he's nice. Those small mom and pops, even just like ABC, which is just on the island, to have a location in a brand new town that's being built, it's going to create the gentrification of it. It's going to be because there's nobody here that's going to have that kind of money, that kind of resources, that kind of pile of attorneys to go through that. So how do we...
Yeah, how do you rebuild a town that has any of the components that got taken away?
Yeah, so why there are food trucks is why the difficulty that I think these business owners in Lahaina are going to face. The deep pockets. They realize a lot of those business owners could set up a food truck or a vending truck, and like the little mall outside by McDonald's in Kihei. Those folks do great. They pay X dollars a month. They don't have bathrooms. They walk in. It's really devolving as we once were. We used to have super malls. Super malls are dissolving. I hear Queen Kamana, they're talking about turning that into senior housing because
to where? Kamana Center?
Yeah. Because there's no profitability anymore for walk-in businesses there. It's just fading. But here we got this beautiful building. Yeah, put senior housing.
You mentioned that reminds me of my friend. I haven't seen him in few decades. Once our financial paths differently, they were curious about me and would get together every time they came out to their villa at Wailea Beach Villas and say, "Hey, you see my little 3-bedroom? It's now worth $6 million."
Isn't that crazy?
And there's a producer down there. I got in his movie because he's in my building.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only fooling, but I'm not fooling.
You're not fooling. I teach private lessons to a lot of those Hollywood types. That's been my go-to since the 80s. I've had more movie stars, producers, studio executives that have non-disclosure contracts with me. It's cool.
I worry about those that aren't successful. You know, you talked about that 80 thing. 80% of people have homes.
Yes.
20% don't.
Right.
Those 20%.
They're and they're overweight. They're eating the wrong foods, and if we actually just gave that 20%, the 40-50 billion dollars that we gave to Ukraine, without even knowing where it's going, that would have been taken care of.
Well, you're assuming the responsibility of these 20%.
Oh,
that's
it's huge, part. Jason, huge.
But it isn't just the 20%. It's more like, I don't even know. Most people are Sunday. What do I call it?
Monday afternoon quarterback.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about those that are pious on Sunday and Monday. They're back to the old routine, and
that brings up something that I've just been ripping at my soul lately.
Oh.
So during COVID and during the lockdowns and this last 35 years, this country has moved away from centralized going to church, going to mass, whatever, has just slowly been edging down. It used to be a family. Half the families in America would go to church on Sunday, okay, whether they liked it or not. Okay, during COVID, I think it became really apparent that there's been a vacuum. This vacuum is that people want to feel like they belong. During this whole hate event for Trump, I have friends that I've loved my whole life, and I still love them very dearly, and I saw them spewing all this hate. But when I stood back and analyzed it, I went, they want to belong to this hate club because now they're not longer, everybody wants to belong to something. So if you, Lord of the Flies, it's a micro, everything is playing into this. We are very tender right now. When Captain Cook came to the island, when the Baldwins came to Maui, and they showed them about Christianity, it wasn't that Christianity was such a sale or such a wonderful thing that they were showing them, that it questioned their belief and the beliefs that they had. And that created a vacuum here on the island and on all of the Hawaiian Islands when Christianity came, that they questioned their beliefs. And that made it so easy for them just to go, we're going to become Christian. And that went across the country. When the Soviets were going out into Cuba, where they were going out down into South America, they were getting people to question their government. And then it made it easy for them to unroll their programs. This is the CIA does it, the Soviets used to do it, and I think they've been doing it against us. They get us to question what we believe in our government, in our leadership, and in ourselves, which creates a vacuum, which makes it very easy to feed in something that shows beautiful, here's a steak and mashed potatoes, isn't that great? Be part of us, one of us, be one of us. Because you're not getting that feeling from going to mass, you're not getting that feeling from your social group because you can't meet. So all of a sudden people glung on to these, either being a vaccination person or an anti-vax person. They want to belong. We have that human need.
I'm concerned I don't know if it's a bigger scale. I'm concerned that it starts with an individual that has a moral compass, a personally moral compass. I think the churches and that going to school on Sunday, going to a thing with a family on Sunday, had a nature of keeping
belonging,
things in control.
I don't think that. I think it was just belonging.
Okay.
Just belonging.
So here
Jason.
now we have a society
that wants to belong to something.
But it's not going in the good directions.
We have so many women right now joining Hamas or becoming Muslim, and I don't even think they realize, that they're going to maybe give up their driver's license and their car keys and everything else to join these groups.
Well, I don't
Who
know
knows?
the
I
numbers
don't
yet.
know. People want to. It's human nature to belong.
Speaking of belong, this is KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui, and Akaku, Maui Community Media, Channel 55 on cable. You can also find us at MauiNeutralZone.com. You can find us on YouTube. Just look up Neutral Zone. It's anything but neutral. And the thing is, I'm here with Scott R Bushnell, and I'm Jason Schwartz. And if you want to throw daggers, or you want to throw praise, or you want anything,
oh yeah,
you can even 808-873-3435. You know, I listen, and I can honestly say I don't expect the light to go on.
No,
at this point, but at some point, I'm still waiting for that day when I get brave enough to call out.
Oh yeah,
to someone that doesn't expect to hear from me.
There you go.
Live and in color. Because
hopefully with both ears. I hope you get your ear back.
I mean, I'm going back. All that you said, I don't doubt. You said elect someone. Who? Who's going to be doing this? Who's going to support that someone to get them elected? It takes a change in our awareness and consciousness as people. I think constantly upset at the moral compass of individuals.
I think the moral compass is beautiful. I think we've lost touch. I can remember everyone that lived on my road in my neighborhood growing up. I can remember everyone that lived on the road where I lived 20 years ago. I now have probably 15 or 20 neighbors, and I know 4 or 5 of them. But when I was out doing the census, I realized that many people don't even know their neighbors anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's really sad. Do you remember what it was like to have front porches where people would go for a stroll in the evening?
Look, I agree. I grew up in a house, like you say. I'm one of those child of someone that I didn't realize I was upper middle class at the time. I realize now that if we had that, the trickle down, there were, even then, lots of people that couldn't afford. But I don't know how we're going to turn this around. I think we have to.
We need to teach, not tolerance. We need to teach the ability to disagree without being disagreeable. I mean, I went to Catholic school in the 60s and the 70s, and we studied every religion on the earth and respected them because they were a different way of seeing faith. We didn't study them so that we could down them or speak poorly of them.
So social media has let us all start talking and interplace and so and give value to something that may not, if you look at it long, you might not give it value, but there's so little time you're looking at it. This whole generation, I mean, when was that? That was before the turn of the century, right? That this all started?
Yeah. So this is another one of my hot buttons.
Uh-oh.
So here we are. We're rolling in the 60s. My brother was a television director for decades. He directed Portland Wrestling back in Portland, Oregon on KPTV Channel 12, black and white. Back then, I was like knee-high to a grasshopper, 5, 6 years old. I would go out on Thursday afternoons with him. I would get to go with him and watch all these professional wrestlers practice everything they were going to do at Saturday Night Wrestling. Where is this going, Scott? Okay. Back when WW Wrestling started to take off, and it was showmanship, the Dr. Buss, when he turned the Lakers in and had the Laker girls going, all of a sudden sports and everything had glash, it had pizzazz, it had everything. And all of a sudden our news media was going like, well, it's going to rain today. It looks like traffic might be a bit busy. Instead, they started glitzing it up, and it wouldn't sell until they blitzed it up. And if there was a disagreement in the House of Representatives, and with statesmanship, they would talk it out, and they debated it, and they worked on the things. They had to sensationalize it because no one would watch their television shows. No one would read the paper unless there was excitement and there was a fight and there was something going on.
Well, here we are now.
Yeah.
I go back, there's too much media. Like right now, what that brought up to me was going back to your 70s again.
Yeah.
And realizing There's a guy that just died. This conversation goes everywhere.
We have fun. You should see us when we're just walking in the water at the pool. Come on Thursdays,
Henry
join
Kissinger
us. Yeah.
just died at 100. And I had a couple of people say to me, "Oh, Henry Kissinger is such a great statement." And then you hear things come out of the woodwork. Democracy Now!, which is put on every day here at Akaku. Thank you very much. They did a little thing about Henry Kissinger when we realized he was Secretary of State and he was a national foreign affairs guy at the same time. Bombing of a neighboring country to a country that we're warring in, Cambodia and Laos. 300,000 people, whether they be blue, green, Palestinian, Jew, Buddhist, Muslim, gone. And he justified it and continued to justify it. And now they use things like sending military things into neighboring countries because they broke the mold. They started down that direction of how are we going to solve the problem? We don't care. The moral, I don't want to say, the moral compass. I've said it before. I just think it's...
we just need to talk to our neighbors.
That's
how it starts, Jason. You just start talking to your neighbors.
I live at a place with 55 or so units.
Right.
And I also know a scant number of people. And we have a meeting of some of the people, maybe 5 or 6 out of the whole community. And we say, let's have a thing. And you bring one and I'll bring one. We'll do a potluck. And then next time, each of you bring one. After a few generations, we'll know everybody. Nobody gets involved.
Yeah. My mom, who was in assisted living and passed away in 2015, she lived in a complex with like 120 people. She knew every single one of them, and she was in her 90s. Our generations have lost touch with being able to communicate with each other. If things that I read on social media, if you said that to me, I'd take a swing at you in the older days. But people are unabashedly saying things that in the real world, if they met somebody on the street, on a dark street, and said those things, that ain't going to fly. The interpersonal communication has suffered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason, you and I disagree on everything and agree on everything all at the same time.
Well, isn't it like everything, everywhere, all at once?
Yeah.
Didn't that win an Oscar?
Yeah, it did.
A bunch of Oscars.
Yeah.
I watched it actually over... I didn't see it in the theaters, but I've been watching it on Amazon.
Nice.
And does the world learn from that awareness that they just now have gotten through that kind of a movie?
I would hope. I think, when we all of a sudden started to have to work more to provide the exact same thing that our parents had, and even working more, I don't think the collapse of the American family or the changing of the American family, the family hasn't gotten any stronger. But I think that we have just misunderstood what as inflation has done to us over the last, since the Nixon gold standard. What the Fed printing money has done to all of us has separated us because we got to grind and we got this. We need the new phone. We need the new car. We need a better house. And that was the American way, but it was much more attainable. Now we're grinding just like that to survive. And we're talking about the big chunk of the middle of the country are 2 paychecks away from not making their house payment. Before COVID, it was 3 years. Now we're down to a few months, according to the Fed. Our personal savings is at an all-time low. 10% of all people during the last 24 months have had to dip into their retirement accounts for emergency withdrawals to not go into foreclosure or be removed from their homes.
Should we invite someone out there to come and give us the answers that we've...
I think we need one of those machines they have at the Fed so we can print money and just take a nice vacation.
Is this the time to use artificial intelligence? We need some intelligence in the room.
Well, I think that's the problem. It's the government's artificial intelligence. No, I heard my grandfather told me something, and it was something very profound. And I know that I don't know if he said it himself, but he says, when I was a kid, and he was born in 1889, and he says, back when I was a kid, a $20 gold piece could buy you the nicest suit on the rack, a pair of shoes, and a briefcase, and you could go to work.
And you'd have change. Right?
And you'd have change. Today, a $20 gold piece will buy you an Armani suit, a satchel, and you'll have change.
And a $20 bill will buy you a hamburger at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah. Happy Meal now is what, $18?
Why do they call it Happy? They should change the name. I always think it's so funny. McDonald's decides to remodel the building, triple the cost of everything, and smile as they give it to you. I really like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to McDonald's. Sorry, ever again.
I don't eat that kind of food.
Well, I'm just saying. But
I get
could you imagine? I just can't imagine. Scott, we have less than a minute.
Oh, we do.
You've done it again. You filled the space with meaningful, exciting conversation. The people out there are saying, man, how does he do it? You've really been a help for me because I don't have to bring on guests that when I can't really speak to them without deciding I'm going to crucify them on the spot when they don't have an answer to
I
the problem.
I think almost every politician in their heart wants to do good.
What can you do with 27 seconds? You can say goodbye and be a nice man.
Aloha, mele kanikimaka. We're coming into the Christmas Advent coming
We
up.
are so fortunate to have Scott R Bushnell with us.
Aloha Private Swim Lessons.
I'm Jason Schwartz. Can you imagine we have 12 seconds to go? That's crazy. That means I have to play the thing. Did it come on? There it is.
Now it is.
We appreciate you joining with us. Come on next week. Go up on the website. Listen to all this stuff. Have fun. Have a good week.